And now that brings us to Gemini 3, which was the first manned Gemini missions, and they completed 3 orbits. I think that was just to put a man on the Gemini mission.
So, command pilot was Gus Grissom, and the pilot was John Young. It was on March 23rd, 1965. It lasted for 4 hours and 52 minutes.
And then Gemini 4, which included the first EVA, extravehicular activity, by an American. White spacewalk was 22 minutes long. And if you haven't seen that video, I would look it up on YouTube of his spacewalk. It's pretty cool. He had a good time.
Okay, and the command pilot on that was, I believe, James McDivitt, and then the pilot was Ed White.
Yeah.
And so Gemini 3, Gemini 4,
Yeah.
sorry, was June 3rd through 7th, 1965. It lasted for 4 days and going on 2 hours, a little under.
So Gemini 5 was the first week-long flight and first use of fuel cells for electrical power. I think that's pretty neat. They also used a guidance and navigation system for future rendezvous missions, and they completed 120 orbits before they ended their mission.
So the total duration of the flight was 7 days and 23 hours, just about, and it was from August 21st through August 29th, 1965. The command pilot was Gordon Cooper, and the pilot was Charles Conrad.
And next, I guess officially, is Gemini 7 before Gemini 6. That's kind of weird. Why would they launch 7 before 6? That's because 7 and 6 had a rendezvous with each other. So for some reason, they decided to launch Gemini 7 and put it into space. And then once they flew over the launch pads, once they got close to flying over the launch pads, they'd launch 6 up. But there were some problems with 6, rocket failures, and they had to do it within 3 days of launching Gemini 7, and so cleaning the launch pad and getting it ready for Gemini 6 was real hassle-some, and they almost missed it and had to cancel the mission, but they got it and they rendezvoused, and it was good. They got within 0.3 to 90 meters of each other when they rendezvoused, because that's what a rendezvous was. They just wanted to see how close they could get while the capsule's still working properly.
So the command pilot for Gemini 7 was Frank Borman, and the pilot was Jim Lovell. It went from December 4th through December 18th, 1965, lasted for 13 days, 18 hours. And then for Gemini 6, what they launched afterwards, the command pilot was Walter Schura, and then the pilot was, I forget his first name, Thomas Stafford.
Yeah. And also 7, after they rendezvoused, were up there for 14 days total time, and I think that's the time it takes for a round trip to the moon, and they just wanted to see if humans could survive that 14 days in space. They were pretty sure they could, but they just wanted to test it out before they actually did it.
So Gemini 6 was only 1 day, 2 hours, and was from December 15th through 16th, 1965.
And Gemini 8, which is... Oh, never mind, that's Apollo 8. Sorry. Gemini 8 accomplished the first docking with another space vehicle, the Agena, yeah, which was just they launched it before they went up, and I think that had no people in it, right? The Agena, and yeah, I think it was just up there to practice with docking with the LEM, the lunar module, once they left the moon. That's what all the Gemini missions were for, is practicing what they'd have to do on a mission to the moon before they actually went to the moon. And they had some problems on Gemini 8. They docked with the Agena and then started in a violent roll and spin, and thinking that it was the Agena that caused the problem, they broke off from the Agena, and it was actually I forgot what they call it, a thruster that was stuck
in the Gemini.
In the Gemini, and so when they undocked, the Gemini 8 capsule started violently spinning even faster.
Because it had just as much angular momentum, but because it was now a little over half the mass, it started spinning a lot faster.
And so, in desperation, Armstrong started the re-entry program, which shut off all the thrusters, and so they had to abort the mission and go back in.
And because they had to abort it, the mission only lasted 10 hours and 42 minutes from March 16th through 17th, 1966. The command pilot was Neil Armstrong, and the pilot was John Young, I think, right? Let me check. No, sorry.
Scott.
Yeah, David Scott.